Thank you, Joel, and thanks so much for coming out tonight. Arthur sends his regrets. I know he wanted to be here, but as Joel said, he's taken ill. Joel's given me about 10 minutes to talk about the transformation of the New York Times. I can't do that. I mean, nobody can do that. Maybe the best poet on earth can do it. I'm not one of them. So I'm just going to take three pieces. We can talk about anything you want after we're done. But I'm going to take three pieces of this transformation and try to elucidate them for you tonight. If you rewind about 5 years, and there's a gentleman in the audience named Jeff McGee, who is a Knight Fellow here at Stanford, who was part of our organization. When did you leave, Jeff? About 5 years ago? Okay, so time flies when you're having fun. We were the digital operations of the New York Times were in a totally separate building with a totally separate staff. The text-based copy that flowed out of our print systems would come to us. We would massage that copy and we would put it up on the web. We had, I don't know, maybe 100 people doing that, not just doing that, but in that organization. We made a decision about 4 years ago, and it was really Arthur's decision, to integrate these operations, to integrate the offline operation with the online operation, to, in essence, infuse the DNA of the digital operation into the print operation. And that was an incredibly difficult thing to do, because the fact is the print operation had existed for 160, 155 years along its own track. The digital operation was a young, vibrant business on its own track, and the two were really on quite separate futures. But the reason we integrated these operations was to do really two things. The first was to take the 1,100 or 1,200 people in the newsroom at that time and basically turn them from simply working on a print product to multi-platform journalists. And that's quite a trick, let me tell you. The second thing was to take the advertising department and take them and turn them from simply selling print advertising to multi-platform advertising sales folks. And in this way, we would transform ourselves from a small online digital operation and a very large print operation to a very large multi-platform operation. That will take years to happen. We've been at it 3 or 4 years, and I think we've made enormous progress. And I will just give you one statistic that I think is very, very telling along this road. If you would rewind, if I was standing up here 3 years ago, and you look out at nytimes.com, which is the website of the New York Times, and you ask yourself, what percentage of the journalism that's used on the Times website was coming from the New York Times newspaper, the number would probably have been 98 or 99%. We were maybe creating 1 or 2 special multimedia features a week. Today, that number is 20%, and it's by far the fastest growing part of the website. And I can pretty much guarantee you that if I come back here 2 years from now, it'll be 40%. So what's happening at the New York Times is that we're transforming the operation not just from the perspective of having a website and having a newspaper, but from the innards of the journalism, from the creation of new forms of journalism. And those forms are married to the technologies of the digital age. So, you know, I think Phil mentioned a golden age of journalism, and I honestly believe that. And I believe it not just because, you know, the internet is a global distribution platform. In fact, Jeff Bezos from Amazon has a wonderful saying. He says, "The web giveth and the web taketh." And let me assure you that's true. The web giveth this global platform, this unbelievable distribution channel, but the web taketh your distribution locks. It taketh the things that protected you, that built a moat around your business in the past. And it taketh that from print, it taketh that from broadcasting, it taketh that from all traditional media. And so at the same time as it's taken these assets away, it's given us this new stuff. But in order to take advantage of this new stuff, we need to marry what we're doing in the newsroom to the attributes of these new platforms. And that's where that statistic comes in. Because I think what's about to happen is that we've integrated the newsroom. We've now begun to create, more than begun to create, these new forms of storytelling, and we're about to enter a phase now where the technology is completely untethered from the desktop. And so what people are about to get very soon, in my view, and you can begin to see it with the Amazon Kindle, you certainly see it with the iPhone, you see it with a plethora of mobile devices that are not quite there yet for widespread sort of reading and experience, but we're very close to having a platform that I think is going to be truly exciting from the perspective of multimedia journalism. And when that platform emerges, and I think it's going to emerge within the next year, you're going to see a sea change in the way that journalism is created. And we are prepared to take that on at the New York Times as a result of this integration. So, you know, part of what you read, you sort of read, you know, the news about the business model and all of that. What you don't read is that we've gone from having when Jeff was in the organization, we maybe had 6 developers. We now have over 100 developers at the New York Times. And that's very important because, you know, software developers are the engines of innovation. Marrying those software developers to the journalism is what makes that new storytelling possible. It makes data visualization possible. It makes animatics possible. It makes it possible for us to have all sorts of new things on the website that are engaging to people on these new digital devices. And I can assure you, if all we were doing was porting print journalism to these digital devices, we would have no future. There would be no future at the New York Times. So everything begins with the journalism, and everything begins with an understanding of how to innovate on these platforms. So when you read about what's happening at the New York Times, sometimes you don't read about, you know, the 100+ software engineers we have, the information architecture team, which is, you know, now 20 people. All of these new skill sets, all of this DNA being insinuated into the organization so that we can compete in this new digital age. I think I've gotten through just about 10 minutes. I'm going to stop now. I'm sure you want to hear about the pay versus free debate. I'm happy to go into that, but there's another colleague here who has his say, so I'll stop now and we'll pick it up in a few minutes.